This is a version of this. I place water around the bowl you can see in front. Uh, the bottle contains water from our last water to communion. There's a connection between this here and the last. And we're going to have 4 periods in this service of sharing what water symbolises, not only where it comes from, but also what it means to us in our lives. First, we'll share water that reminds us that while some of us have just as much water as we need, some struggle in scarcity, whilst others are inundated and struggle to survive. Second, we'll share water that symbolises travel, movement and change. Third, we'll share water that reminds us of life's storms, our concerns, our worries, our frustrations and losses. And finally, though, we'll share water that reminds us of the wellsprings of our lives. First, though, a reading. This is Introducing the Water Communion by Eric Cherry. We gather in community to worship at a corner of our year as a congregation. This morning we carry hope and love and courageous faith, and we seek to renew our commitments to each other and to our wider community outside these walls. We remind ourselves of the home we share, a home that we come back to whether after a long or short absence, a home we welcome all to make their own, a home of love and hope and faith. So let us gather together. And as we gather together this morning, we pause to reflect on all the times the life-giving element of water has been present in our lives throughout the last 12 months. We might call to mind light summer showers, heavy summer deluges on the day of the Great North Run, thunderstorms, dewy mornings and misty evenings, long drives in the rain or moments at poolsides, ocean sides, riversides, lakesides, swimming, diving, strolling and splashing. And who we were with there, or were we there alone? Perhaps we found ourselves in the presence of water during a moment of grief or birth or rebirth, or perhaps in a mundane place whose sacredness is palpable nonetheless. We reflect upon what we brought with us to these moments and places, in backpacks and in water bottles for sure, but also what spiritual, emotional or personal baggage we carried, and what we did with it whilst we were in these watery places and moments. Did the waters of the boat and indefatigable resiliency inspire you, or its serenity? Perhaps its waxing and waning tides, the music of its motion, or the silence of its sleep. Did we feel the independent web of all life coming alive in these moments? Some of us might have had the gift of a momentary spiritual epiphany, others a growing awareness of how this very water is like strands of the web of life, and how the web is us and everything. Perhaps the ties to spiritual companions throughout the world become clearer and clearer. Bring to mind the monsoon rains that our fellow human beings in the Philippines and India know, or the churning ocean of Tierra del Fuego, the rivers and valleys of Transylvania, or Lake Victoria and Lake Tanganyika present to those living in Kenya, Uganda and Burundi. What brings these fellow human beings quite close to water? What does water bring to them as it does to us? How glorious, how sacred, how peaceful. Let us rest and rely on that truth in the moment of silence and contemplation. And now to begin. Let's begin by reflecting on our own good fortune in having access to clean water when we need it, and from being mostly protected from the devastating effect of floods and storms. So our container here, the bowl, have a personal attachment to that bowl. It used to belong to my grandma. So I think she'd be happy to see it doing duty today. And at the moment it is empty of water. And that reminds us all of those who don't have any access at all to safe or affordable water, or who are forced to drink from muddy puddles that they know will make them sick because there is simply nothing else. So I dedicate the first water I will pour in to begin our water communion with this symbol of solidarity to everybody around the world who lacks that human right to clean water. Let us also pour it out for all those farmers who have lost their crops and their livestock this year because of drought or flooding. And let's remember all of those who, like thirsty people who have no clean water, lack what they need in their lives. And I think at this particular moment in time, we probably also all want to remember those for whom water is devastating. For whom the only true symbol would be to pour so much water into that bowl that it would not only overflow and flood the floor, but the entire building would be washed away. We think of people in Libya, in North America and Canada, in Delhi and South Korea, and many other places this year who've died or seen their homes and families destroyed. All of us now remember our responsibility to our wider human community. Let's pray for their well-being, healing and restoration, and vow to work to address the effects of extreme weather and climate change in our world.
Water by Philip Larkin. If I were called in to conduct a religion, I should make use of water. Going to church would entail affording to dry different clothes. My liturgy would employ images of standing, furious devote, drenched. And I should raise in the east a glass of water for any angered light would congregate endlessly.
For this we also have a reading, The Spirituality of Water by Leland Bonald. Earth, sun, water. Humankind has worshipped the sun for millennia, the earth too, but water? Farmers pray for rain, but otherwise we don't often worship water. Let's explain why water is worth worshipping. Water is a paragon, the best example of commonality and unity. As Unitarian Universalists, as the author is, we are naturally interested in unity and commonality, and are accustomed to thinking in these terms, and are welcoming of images and science that affirms these values. Our bodies are of water. On average, about 60% of our body weight is water. Water integrates us, reminds us of our similarities and our connections to each other and to nature. The sea, our great repository of water, is interconnected too. For convenience, we divide up the sea into oceans, but these are human only. Like creation itself, the sea is truly all one. Many people have said that as we saw our world from space, we realised we had named it Earth, but we might more accurately have named it Ocean. It is very clear looking back from space at our tiny blue marble, our beautiful home in the cosmos, that the blue ball we see as we planted our explorers on the moon and into orbit, who looked down upon it, that what we saw was the deep blue sea, blue and watery. The Unitarian part of us understands the unity of everything, and that everything, I and many others believe, the unity of all human beings is most important. Unitarians are generally sceptical of claims about miraculous anything, but there is something about water that is miraculous, and that has to do with its unique molecular composition, its physics and chemistry. That is, when water freezes, its structure expands instead of contracting like most substances do. Because it expands, it becomes most dense. And then it becomes less dense, and then it rises to the top of the liquid water and it floats. This is a non-supernatural miracle to us and to just about all life on Earth, because if water behaved like most other materials, the ice would sink to the bottom, and the seas would become and remain mostly ice, from the deepest canyons to very near the surface. Not having lots of liquid water would have prevented life from beginning on Earth. Missing would be the fertile soup of dissolved Earth elements in vast amounts of ocean. Although life might have started in those few feet of meltwater on top of the ice, Life would not be able to thrive and mutate, and would not develop ever more complex molecules becoming more elaborate, and finally, in the laboratory of those warm, shallow seas, become able to replicate. It is indeed a miracle, and when we drink water, we are sipping a sip of holy water, in happiness and gratitude for our good fortune. We have also been blessed by another non-supernatural miracle, and that is that our universe, as it grew ever more complex, was able to evolve creatures that can think, do maths, philosophy, paint, and meet on Sundays. Our universe created consciousness. It is indeed a miracle. Water is central to our lives. Without water, no food. Everything we drink is water-based. We can flavour water any way we want, but it's still water at its base. And to speak of the spirituality of water, the Scottish name for the national spirit, whisky, is the sea beta, which I have mangled the pronunciation thereof because my Scottish ancestry lies several generations back, but it means water of life. The same as the Romans and their aqua vitae, also water of life. Water is the original solvent, and we use it to wash ourselves and everything else, including sin. We use water for baptism and christenings, blessings, all forms of dissolving and washing away that which needs to go, to bestow health and happiness and safety. Water is necessary to grow topsoil and grasses, without which our earth would be like Mars, our nearest neighbour, all dust blowing all the time. Water is necessary to grow trees for us to cut up into wood. Water is necessary to make bricks and concrete if we want to have somewhere to live. 7/10 of our world's surface is covered by the sea. They are one interconnected ebb and flow, interrupted only by islands and continental landmasses. Our ancestors worshipped the sun. Some still do, although many in the form of seeing it as a physical representation of the mighty power of the universe, or spiritual beings who are associated with the sun. The sun is rightly seen as the source of light and warmth and power, but the sun is far away. The earth is close at hand, and we work with it and play on it, and we do that with water too. But water can be positively fun. It gives us joy. We swim and dive and play in the mud and have water fights and splash about like otters. And the author comments, if I should be asked what the phrase spirituality of water means, I will reply that, like most things spiritual, it's different for different people. I really hope that's not the red arrows coming down.
Not again.
Sorry, for a second I thought someone moving to the matrix. Beginning again. We can agree that it is one of the most powerful, necessary, life-sustaining classical elements: air, earth, water and fire. And having it sets us apart from the other planets, which are too hot or too cold to have liquid water, if indeed they have any at all. We are very blessed to have so much of it. If life exists elsewhere in our universe, we have good reason to believe that what we should be looking for in order to find it is the presence of liquid water. If I am asked what is spiritual about water to me, I get a dreamy look. And the author here talks about the water of the high mountain meadows of the Cascade Range near home. Their water is mostly from snowfields, which slowly releases water over the course of the summer and creates a little paradise of wildflowers and chattering streams. The snowfields melt water, soaks down onto the thin belt of soil and seeps down till it reaches the underlying rock just a bit below. The water runs down on top of the rock, picking up little molecules of rock and earth, and is joined by other waters, seeking the path of least resistance, until it runs out and then becomes a stream in the open air. Little trickles from other parts of the snowfield join it, and it becomes a small watercourse. It cuts the channel from past years a little deeper. The overhanging greenery and wildflowers make a little tunnel through the meadow until it reaches a little waterfall, maybe 6 feet high, with ferns growing in the crevices. And if you have been to Jesmond Dean, perhaps you might be thinking of the water there as I am. And if you are lucky, if you are there at that stream in the mountains where there is nothing to pollute the water, you may be there with a little cup catching the precious. precious fluid that flows from the mountains. It tastes wonderful, pure, cold, and powerful like liquid light. It restores our soul, any soul. It amuses me personally, and this is me, Louise speaking, that my own water, needless to say, would be nothing like that. My own water is the North Sea. Attempts to drink it are generally extremely ill-advised. It is also known to be less than friendly upon occasions, quite capable of tripping you into rocks if it's having a bad day. But for those who are willing to work with the water and wait for the waters to calm down and clear up, we may enter it at its own leisure. By the grace of the North Sea, sometimes we enter and swim. We see the fish, the crabs, the big little anemones, the kelp, forest growing with their tiny sea slugs. Last Saturday, a week ago, I was actually present at Table Rocks Pool, which is a small hole blasted into the table rocks, appropriately enough, at colour coats, ground-spraying colour coats. I was there to scuba dive, which is my hobby, but it was such a beautiful day. I actually have a photo which had a little more organised I could have put on the front of the order of service. You will see there people sunbathing by the water, people swimming in the pool. Some have gone out to snorkel, and a few divers are surfacing beyond them. Others are fishing for lunch, and just beyond we can see paddleboarders and kayakers and sailing boats. Sitting on the horizon is a mighty container ship, and a cruise ship coming into the port of Tyne. And beyond them lie the wind farms that provide the power that we hope will increasingly be what does provide power as we try to move into a fairer, more kind, and less polluting world. That's my water, and we've heard what the author's water is like. I wonder what everybody else thinks of. We'll be happier, I think, if we're more like water, uniting and connecting everything, protecting each other from drought and forest fires, and political upheaval and needless violence. Of course, being me, I would say we would be happier if we are like the good, positive sides of water. As we've heard, it's also mightily destructive, just as we human beings can be. Let us strive to have the best of our nature and restrain the worst. Let's water plants, water good ideas, and water each other, and let our differences dissolve and mix into them. From time to time, wash our eyes and see things refreshed and different. Be surprised and pleased. Let us move once more into a time of prayer. The strength of water. The strength of water takes on many, many forms. Just as each of us has a unique and necessary strength that we bring to our community and to the work of love. Take a moment now to drop down into the deep wellspring of your own spirit and bathe yourself in the strength that is the groundwater of your person. Are you a roaring fall wearing the rock away with the sheer force of your will? Are you a tiny drop of water in a crevice, breaking it open, slowly, steadily? Are you buoyant like a great salt lake, practiced at holding others aloft? Are you as tenacious as a mountain stream, finding your way down and around every obstacle you face? Are you still and calm like a pond at daybreak, offering radiant peace by your shores? Are you in touch with hidden depths, pulling from a vast well? Do you soothe, like the steam rising from a cup of tea? Do you dissolve away stubborn muck, like water left inside a cook pot to soak? Do you soften and smooth edges like the creeping mist? Do you clear away distraction like a cleansing rain? Do you roll with the ebb and flow like the ocean waves? Settle your mind upon the strength, the power that is yours. Draw that strength into your heart. Draw it up into your soul. As we gather together the many waters of our community, we need each of your power, each of your resilience, each of your love, that we may all be whole. May it be so.
To Be Resilient by Tim Atkins. Let me tell you the secret that has led me to my goal. My strength lies solely in my tenacity. Louis Pasteur. When I was a child in Georgia, we took a field trip to a nature centre called Oxbow Meadows. At the time, I didn't know what an oxbow was. I just knew I totally loved the name. Later on in life, I learned that as a river flows, it will erode its banks over time. What might start off as a little divot erodes and erodes until it forms a classic river bend. Oxbow refers to this kind of U-shaped bend in the river, and an oxbow lake is when the river has eroded the bank of the bend to the point where it cuts off from the main stream. Think of it like cutting a line across the top of a U. Well, what happens to the bottom of the U that is no longer getting access to the running waters of the river? It becomes an oxbow lake. There are so many spiritual lessons from the natural world, and in a season filled with ingatherings and water communions, this is one for me. Oxbow lakes as a beautiful combination of resiliency, strength, and flexibility. It takes a long time for an oxbow to fully form into an oxbow lake. The water doesn't care, it just keeps going. If there's something in the way, water will bump up against it and then go around it. If water was too rigid, it wouldn't be able to flow down the banks of the river. But we all know about the strength of water too. Water can do incredible things, incredibly beautiful things, and incredibly destructive things. Running water can be the strongest force in our natural world, breaking down rocks, digging out grand canyons, swallowing an entire island. It's this strength that helps water erode the walls of the river, eventually forming the oxbow. We often think that strength and flexibility are opposite sides of the same coin, but when they are united with resiliency, you can literally move the earth. Resiliency united with strength and flexibility creates beauty in the world and creates new spaces for life to flourish. In this time in my life, at this time in our history, I need this kind of oxbow resiliency more than ever. May we all have oxbow strength, carving through mountains, determined to change. May we all have oxbow flexibility, bending around the curves, overcoming all obstacles. May we all have oxbow faith, moving forward.
So as we come to the conclusion of our communion, let us consider the water that reminds us of the well springs of our lives, water that sustains us when we are feeling empty, joys that give us hope and that buoy us up. All water is connected. In our water ritual, traditionally, people tend to bring together water from the places we live or places we might have visited and put it together in one container. All of the water mixes together and every drop has some of the molecules of water from every place. So, if you were then to take out a small bottle of that water, you would have water from many places all together in one bottle. Every time we hold the water communion, we add some water from the bottle saved from the previous one. In that way, each ritual, each small bottle, contains waters from so many different sources. Why would we want to have such a bottle? First of all, there's one way to make tangible the sacredness of water. All life comes from water and needs water to survive. Water moves through the whole ecosystem, nurturing and transforming life as it moves. It rises from the ocean in evaporation, forming clouds in the sky, and blown by the winds, it turns to the land in the form of rain or snow. This precipitation falls into the soil and gathers in streams and aquifers. In the midst of this journey, it travels through the bodies of every living thing. And when I say bodies, I do not mean only animals, but every being needs water: insects, plants, flowers, grass, birds, mammals, fish, and humans. It rises through the stems of plants and trunks of trees and circulates within the bloodstream of living creatures. But no water is truly isolated from the rest. Even our own bodies eventually become part of the water cycle. The water goes back to the air or earth and continues in streams and rivers on its way to the ocean. The cycle keeps going, round and round. So, all water on Earth is really one water continuously flowing through our biosphere. Even when we get water from the tap, that water has been around the world on its journey. All water is connected and connects all of life. And this is our water of hope and sustenance from last year's water communion. And let us close our time together with these words. Let us reflect upon our gathering. Let us celebrate what we have discovered already. Let us be grateful for what we have not yet discovered. Let us contemplate what it is we need to find during this hour. Let us remember all those previous occasions when our needs have been met, especially when we thought that that would have been impossible. And as we go forward, let the air and fire of spirit renew the water of our souls. Let the presence of each of us create the community in all of us. May it be so. Amen.